everyone. This is the Gridiron Review, and we are drafting a team of our favorite players in the NFL, and we're going to put them against each other, and you let us know in the comments who you think is going to win. Jack, you can start us off. And again, I just want to stress this is favorite, not best.
So just before we start, so you know, it's similar to the last format. Quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, and then defensively, it's going to be 2 D linemen, 2 backers, 2 members of the secondary, and a defensive flex. With the first pick, I'm going to go with the menace himself, the Steelers, George Pickens.
I was kind of wondering how quickly you took him. It's going to be interesting. I know there's a lot of debate on whether he can be the wide receiver 1, but there's no denying the catch last year he had was one of the best, arguably better than Beckham's, to be honest, and it doesn't get talked about nearly as much. For me, I'm going to start off with one of my heavy hitters that I enjoy, and that's Christian McCaffrey at running back 1. I really don't like that many running backs in the modern NFL just because I don't know why. There's a couple that were drafted this year, like Izzy Abanaconda, that I'm a big fan of, but I'm kind of staying away from rookies for this, but that's a personal thing. That wasn't a requirement. But yeah, running back 1, CMC.
I'm going to match Zach's pick and go running back 1. I'm going to take Nick Chubb, Georgia legend, and just one of the best in the league. Doesn't do much of the pass catcher like Zach's pick, but he'll run through you.
With my second pick, I'm going to go along with my Funkos in the background and take QB1 Lamar Jackson. You can see that way. There's CMC and Lamar right next to each other. And he is by far my favorite quarterback in the NFL and very likely my favorite player as a whole. I think he's somehow overrated and underrated, depending on who you talk to. And hopefully this season with Todd Monken, he's going to actually be able to flourish as a passer.
I'm going to take receiver 2 right now. I'm going to go with Chris Olave. He is one that you're laughing. I know you wanted him.
That was literally my wide receiver 2. So, all right, keep going.
Olave is one that we liked a lot coming out last year. If I remember correctly, we had him as wide receiver 1.
Yep.
He just seems underrated. Not to some people that may be a weird statement, but when you compare the hype of Garrett Wilson to the hype of Olave, it does not match for 2 guys that had nearly similar stats this year.
Not even just them, but almost all of the rookies taken early, except for the Gambler, had similar seasons. And Olave, it really feels like when Jefferson came out, he was kind of just the forgotten man. Now Jefferson had a historic rookie year, but it also felt like he was kind of just at the time was like, yeah, that's a decent pick, but ended up obviously being much better than that. And just for record, not only was he one of my receivers, he was my wide receiver 2. So I'm going to pivot and take my wide receiver 2, that was my wide receiver 3, and take Scary Terry, one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. And yes, he always ends up on the underrated list, and there's a reason for that. He's basically put up with awful quarterback play, similar to Larry Fitzgerald and early DeAndre Hopkins, where it's just brutal. And we really hope that Sam Howell can change things this year for him.
With my next pick, I'm going to take arguably my favorite defensive player in all of football, Isaiah Simmons. For anyone who watched the first video, I highly value versatility. And if you do watch college football, you know just how versatile Simmons was in his 3 years at Clemson.
All right, we're going to be figuring out my wide receiver 3 on the fly. I'm going to go with my DB1, and this is going to be Jabril Peppers. This is more so because of who he was in college. I am a Michigan fan, and he is Michigan football. There's probably not another player in recent memory that is just thought of. I know there's obviously been a lot of Michigan players coming out, but for me, when I think of the last 20 years, Jabril Peppers is the first name that comes to mind. Again, versatility. If he had come up a little bit later in the modern NFL, there's a good chance he would have been used on offense as well.
With my next pick, I'm going to take a bit of an oldie here, but I am going to take Khalil Mack. When he came out that year, I was fully under the belief that he was better than Clowney, who has a one play highlight and should have been the first overall pick without a doubt. And that's kind of been um, not undervalued, but he just seems to get tossed around. And I know the NFL is a money game, but like for a player of his caliber and how long he's been doing it, he's kind of just been like tossed around like he's nothing.
Yeah, he's had a lot of different, different teams. I mean, not that many, but for a player like him, you would have expected him to be on one or two teams max. And even, I think he had like 12 sacks last year and just wasn't talked about. Definitely underrated despite being one of the best pass rushers of this generation. And I'm just going to follow along with this. I'm going to take him as a defensive lineman. Chandler Jones is my D lineman one, maybe even more under the radar than Khalil Mack. Now, he's been hurt and started to break down quite rapidly, but there was a time where he was on pace to be top 10 sacks all time quietly. And he was one of my favorite players growing up. And it's a shame that he went to Arizona and has had, hopefully he can recover it, but he is one of my favorite defensive players.
He was also on my list of defensive linemen, unsurprisingly. Gonna shift gears, stay on the defensive side, but different position. Linebacker one, I'm going to take Demario Davis. I was never a Jets fan, but he was always one that felt like was overshadowed by someone like David Harris with the Jets. Always somebody that I liked. He kind of bloomed late, but now even in his 30s, he's in his prime. I think last year was his first Pro Bowl, despite how well he played. So just a very undervalued linebacker, and we were talking about it before we came on. Zach looked up the top 32 linebackers, and what did you say? PFF had him in the
at number 3 in tier 1, even at his age. Yeah, and it doesn't seem like he's slowing down at all.
No.
So with my wide receiver one, I'm going with Cooper Kupp. He is, if there's anyone that challenges Lamar Jackson for my favorite player of all the NFL, it's him. I was a big fan of his coming out of college, and I think he's not underrated. He's properly rated still, but he's going to be one of those players that whenever he's Hall of Fame eligible, it's going to be an interesting conversation of just how dominant he was in a short amount of time. I don't think he'll get in unless he has 3 more seasons going into his 30s or mid 30s and has high level, because he was playing even better than his record-setting year last year before injuries. But it'll be an interesting conversation when you talk about prime versus longevity.
Yeah, so I think this is a conversation that we've had before, but just kind of on the topic of Kupp is you talk about why Kupp fell, and everyone wants the blazing speed. John Ross goes at 9 because he runs a 4.22 or whatever it was, and just all these super flashy guys, and here's Cooper Kupp dominating the league as what round he went in offhand?
Third.
And I believe it was Steve Smith who did an interview about Kupp, who said the reason he's so dangerous is because he runs 4.6 or whatever his 40 was every play. Mm-hmm. Obviously the 4.2 guys like Hill are dangerous, but they're not running 4.2 every play. Kupp is consistently running 4.6, and that's what makes him dangerous.
Yeah, and I think the interesting, note on his career is also going to be the playoff run. I mean, in the Super Bowl down the stretch, you knew it was going to him, and they couldn't stop him. It was just one of those pure dominance that not many players can do. And he's probably not going to go to the playoffs again unless he gets traded, because the Rams are one injury away from being Caleb Williams drafting, maybe, or Stetson Bennett starting. And like I said, it'll be interesting. I hope this injury isn't a pattern and he's able to continue, but Jack is back on the clock.
With my next pick, I'll just take him now. Man that Zach just named. Give me the 2-time defending national champion Stetson Bennett at quarterback. Thank you very much.
Oh boy. All right. I'm gonna go with defensive line 2. I'm going to go Jordan Davis. I think it's insane just how athletic he is. And you see him standing next to Jalen Carter, and it even puts it in more perspective, just how wild. But this is just as much for his off-the-field stuff as it is on. He is hilarious on social media. And I don't know if you saw I think I sent it to you, the Eagles cooking video where the
Yeah.
rookies yeah, that was so funny. And he also, obviously, like most Georgia players, is high character. And I really hope he is able to stay healthy and put on a show with his dominance.
So sticking with the same team here and even the same position group, I'm gonna take Hassan Reddick at defensive line too. Reddick is coming off a career year with, I don't know offhand how many sacks he had.
16, maybe more.
Yeah, a guy who got drafted, kind of a tweener. Always a guy that like I had confidence in, but was never in the right situation. But again, versatility. The Eagles don't ask him to do it a lot, but he can drop. And had it not been for the NFL's horrible decision to use a grass field, he probably would have feasted in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, and 16 on the dot. I was right.
Nice.
That's where all my memory goes. But yeah, I mean, a player that started as a middle linebacker is insane to think that he's, now one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. For me, I'm going to go defensive flex and go George Karlaftis. This is one of the first players we scouted, me specifically, and someone that I really thought challenged Aiden Hutchinson as the best defensive pass rusher last year, and he ended up being the second best defensive lineman from the rookie class. And I hope he continues to grow as time goes on. And it's just a player I like more because of just me scouting.
At wide receiver 3/running back 3, give me Deebo Samuel. Highly value versatility, as you can tell by almost every pick that I have here. Hopefully he can stay healthy. The last couple of years have not been great for stat-wise for him due to his health, but he's in certainly the best system for him to succeed.
For tight end 1, I'm going with Jelani Woods. Well, only tight end. Another player that I really like scouting, but I also think he's going to explode this year. All of the underlying metrics, depth per reception, explosive rating, and everything like that makes me think that him and Anthony Richardson are going to become a lethal combination.
Sticking on the same path as Zach here, I'm going to take another freak at tight end. I'm going to take Darnell Washington, the juggernaut. It's hard to, I got to give him credit for sticking around at Georgia. Someone like Brock Bowers comes in and takes all the attention away from you, despite you being such a highly touted recruit. And you just stick around. You know your role. You block your ass off and don't really get many passes. And I know, like, as a coach, you always tell your players, like, oh, you got to earn your catches. He didn't get a whole ton, but he was just a team first player. And I hope that he finds himself a better role than just blocking at Pittsburgh.
We'll see. Pat Freiermuth does have a concussion history. So for me, my wide receiver 3 that I just came up with, and I remembered why. I don't love this player, but I respect his absolute pettiness, and that is Amon-Ra St. Brown, a player that has everyone taken ahead of him memorized, and he recites it repeatedly. And he's not arrogant, but obviously he's got the skill to back it up. But I just got to respect that level of pettiness and motivation, using it as a chip on your shoulder. And so another player that should possibly explode this year, since he's going to be the number 1 target. And JMO wanted to be a gambler.
I don't think any of the, actually it's you, so I don't know. I'm just gonna take the interesting pick here at my running back 2 spot. Give me Kyle Juszczyk, arguably the best fullback of all time. He absolutely could start at running back if the 49ers wanted him to. He's just that kind of guy. I was watching a TikTok on him the other day about his draft party story. I think I sent it to Zach, but I can't remember. But super funny.
With my linebacker 1, I'm going with Foyesade Oluokun. He's an Ivy League player. I love those. Ryan Fitzmagic, baby. But it's also that he's just racked up an enormous number of tackles. And I think it's always interesting when Ivy League players are able to stick in the NFL and be good, not just background.
So at secondary one for me, I'm gonna take Christian Gonzalez. Despite him falling to pick 17 this year, I mean, I would have ranked him amongst the likes of Stingley and Sauce had they come out the same year. Raw player, but still, after transferring to Oregon from Colorado, had a really, really standout year. And just knowing the weird Patriot way, he's probably going to get developed into some sort of freak who gets traded when they don't want to pay their players.
Yeah, and then he's going to be great on another team. All right, I have 2 positions left. I have running back 2 and defensive back 2. For running back 2, I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor. As I said, it's not, I don't love him, but he's sort of a local guy, as is Isaiah Pacheco. I guess I should have called it. Actually, scratch that. I'm going to go with Isaiah Pacheco. He's very local, grew up about 10, 15 minutes from me, and I think it's very cool when people of any sport are able to make it from your local town. And especially when, like I said, I don't love a lot of running backs.
With secondary too, I'm going to go with another rookie. I'm going to go with Chris Smith out of Georgia. Highly underrated player. He was our safety one. Big time playmaker. Struggled a little bit in the Reese's Senior Bowl. He absolutely should have been taken earlier than the 5th. The only positive about him going later, especially to someone like Vegas, is that I know he'll have a shot at cracking the starting lineup because we all know Vegas is a dumpster fire as long as McDaniels is there.
That is true. And I am going to do my final draft pick at defensive back 2 with Marcus Jones. Versatility, again, is the name of the game. And he played corner, he returned punts, he returned kicks, and he caught passes on the offense. And I think that's awesome. And, wait, you have another pick? Huh?
You have another pick. Because I have.
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
So linebacker 2, I'm kind of between 2 guys here, but I am gonna take Nakobe Dean over Devin White. Georgia kid, high character, big time captain. The play that lives rent free in my head consistently is the play where he yells at Channing Tindall for going the wrong way, and Tindall goes and sacks Bryce Young the next play. So hopefully, as the green dot leader of the defense this year, he breaks out big time for them.
My linebacker 2, which I kind of got lost in the fray, I'm going to go with Bobby Wagner, a player that when you look at other all-time great linebackers, or at least Hall of Fame level linebackers in recent memory, like Patrick Willis, like Luke Kuechly, Bobby Wagner has had an unprecedented level of longevity. He doesn't seem to be slowing down entering his 30s. And I don't know if he's looking to retire soon, but even if he did, he's a Hall of Famer now. But he just doesn't seem to break down. And it's quite incredible when you see, like I said, recent greats that retire very early at the linebacker position. Now that concludes our drafting of our favorite players. Let us know in the comments what you think. And keep an eye out on our channel. We're going to be looking to do serious and fun stuff going forward. And we'll see you back.